And I want to preface all of this by a very quick story as to why this is important. Obviously, when we were here several months ago talking about downtown and the development that's going on in downtown, we talked about obviously crime being an issue for all of us, whether that be those that are living here, those that are visiting here, or those that are considering coming here. And I can tell you, we recently, right before the end of the year, announced a new project called ALOPAC. ALOPAC is a company that actually narrowed us to one of 5 finalists. And the 5 finalists, they came to visit. We went through our typical, here's what we have, here's what we're going to do, here's who we are and why this is the best place. And in the end, the site consultant raised his hand and said, there's one problem that the company really wants you to delve deeper into. And I said, sure, what's that? And it was crime. So we all see the rankings du jour of the day. And it was interesting, the Democrat-Gazette, and I think I mentioned this last time as well, wrote an editorial about the data that a lot of these people are using, or the lack thereof, to create these lists. And most of the time, you would think that's what we would use as what we're doing. And yet, we began with the subject today, the Real-Time Crime Center, and what its impact not only was already beginning to have, but what you're going to hear more about today as what this center is having, not only on crime here in Little Rock, but also crime in Pulaski County and Central Arkansas. So ALOPAC obviously recognized what this meant. They recognized that we were addressing issues. We ended up, and I'll say this now since it's over, it came down to us in a large city that sits on the Missouri-Kansas line, who has their own problems. And so obviously we answered that question in a way that made them comfortable to invest several $100 million here in Little Rock. So with that, Mayor, why don't you begin by telling us what this Real-Time Crime Center thing is?
If you've ever watched CSI, that's my best explanation to it. And she's the star of it, okay? It truly is an opportunity where the city of Little Rock plays a role in addressing our holistic community violence reduction plan that focuses on targeted patrols and a dosing method that Chief Helton will share, focuses on a number of dollars that we utilize within the American Rescue Plan Act and the Biden administration to put towards community violence reduction plans and treatment, in addition to our PIT programs that we've done for many, many different years. But we had to be smart on crime. And so we want to not only focus on targeting patrols, the dosing strategy, prevention, intervention, treatment programs, and also our people by having the highest historic raises in 2022 of 12% for all of our officers, and then come back in 2023 for additional 9%, with the credit of the City of Little Rock Board of Directors that approved those raises, having us to have the highest municipal force. But we also had to focus on technology. And so when you think about the CSIs, it's additional eyes on the street. One, it's a prevention method that people see these cameras within businesses and their homes. Two, when someone commits a crime, here in the city of Little Rock, we have one of the highest ranked capture rates, somewhere around 72 to 73%. And we're able to really catch this in real time. One last story, shortly after we implemented the Real-Time Crime Center, and the City of Little Rock Board of Directors approved millions of dollars to get us started. Jay Chesshir and I were going on an economic development trip in Atlanta. We got news in Atlanta, as we were boarding our flight in Little Rock, that there was a mental health individual that basically went into a hospital and really just kind of created a huge scene and a lot of different deaths. By the time we had landed, maybe 30 minutes or so after we had landed, he was caught. utilizing the technology of their real-time crime center where they were able to identify him in another county. And from that point on, we went all in already. We were already all in, but we knew then we had to put more dollars to focus on this CSI type of mentality with the real-time crime center that's been led by Chief Helton and was funded by the City of Little Rock Board of Directors, and we say thank you. Chief,
In that regard, because I think one of the things that was, I knew about the center beginning, but I didn't really know much about it. And in that day, it was on May the 3rd of 2023, by the way. That day, as we were landing and we were getting the information from the mayor's office in Atlanta because of Mayor Scott's relationship with him, it just dumbfounded me that within minutes of that shooting, they had identified who that gentleman was because of this camera system that exists. And the mayor talked about, yes, we need as many people as we can, boots on the ground, and obviously that's part of this whole process. But tell us, based upon your innovative use of technology, how this real-time crime center really is creating eyes and ears all over our community.
It is a huge game changer in the way we do business as law enforcement. It's a force multiplier, so to speak. There's no secret, law enforcement around the country is facing staffing shortages and challenges. So in order to, how do you deal with that? We've got to learn to leverage technology to help us out. And in reinvesting and re-engaging our community partners on how you can also be a piece to the puzzle and help us solve some of these issues related to crime. So as we build that platform out, I mean, we're really blessed that Mayor Scott, members of the board, that took this idea that we had that developed in 2021 when we were tasked to figure out how we're going to look and how we're going to address violent crime, because violent crime all across the nation was starting to soar. So one thing is, what are we going to do to address it here? Had the opportunity to go down to New Orleans, kind of look at their crime center, brought it back, really started throwing the idea out, hey, this is something I think is possible here, and the ARPA money was kind of floating around out there, so we said, let's roll the dice and pitch the plan. We pitched it, very much got the blessing and moved forward with it, and here we are today with our center. Very much want to grow it. Had an idea last year where we wanted to be. We didn't quite hit our mark, but that's where we got to really engage our private sector partners, our residents, members of the community, to get involved. We talk about Atlanta. That's kind of how we modeled our center after Atlanta. You know, they've got roughly about almost 18,000 business partners have integrated their cameras into their system, along with another 19,000 residents that have registered their cameras as well. So they're casting a net over their city. And when you have that net, it allows us now to become active and proactive in addressing crime. So it's a crime prevention tool. It helps us solve crime. And then it also affects us to now we're providing our officers real information real time. So if you have an officer out there that's responding to a call for service and we're able to provide them with more information, an officer that's more informed is going to give you a better level of service. So that's where you get the magic, and that's how you've seen it play out for us and be very good. We're only scratching a very small surface of where I know we can be. And I know I'll let Sergeant Bewley comment as well, because she's in their day-to-day operation. So you want to add any more to that? Yeah.
Sergeant Bewley, tell us how it operates. How does the center itself operate?
Sure. So I will say, you know, we have had the opportunity to look at other cities and what they do, and those are very good learning experiences, but you will find that every real-time crime center in different jurisdictions operates slightly differently. It's what's best for your community. And so right now for ours, we are primarily staffed by sworn personnel. At this time, I have 4 detectives that work on the unit with me. I have my partner over here, Sergeant Hutchison, who came on with us recently. And then I have a civilian staff member as well. And so that's just the general makeup of the people. And then we do cycle through and have officers that are on light duty, generally like our pregnant officers. You know, they can't be on the street. They come in, work with us so that they get to use the most of their time. And so a typical day would be simple things like just monitoring the reports and the summaries from the overnight shifts and seeing if we see any patterns. You know, maybe there was a burglary or a robbery that occurred last night, and something similar might happen in the day shift, and that day shift officer may not know about it because they didn't see that summary, just trying to help tie those things together. So there's a lot of data that we go over and make sure we're familiar with it. We have license plate readers here in the city, and those devices are basically cameras. They're still cameras that capture images of vehicles that go by, and the computer can automatically read that plate and compare it to the national database where you report things like missing people, stolen vehicles, stolen license plates. If we know that, there's a vehicle that's involved in some sort of crime, we can also flag that. And so we'll keep track of those as they go throughout the city, and if there's something that officers need to know about, we'll get on the radio and inform them of that. Because, while you're on the way to a call for service, an officer may not necessarily have time to type in every license plate that they see because they're trying to drive and get where they're going safely. So we can put that information on the radio so they're aware. And as we know, people don't just drive around in stolen cars for fun. They usually go commit other crimes. So that's been just one of the big things I think that people focus on that find interesting is using those license plate readers to apprehend those types of vehicles. So that's just some of the basics things that we do daily.
So one of the things that we've learned, and the Atlanta story is a great primer that we're using to try to move our work forward here. Lisa Farrell, Sharon Talek-Vogelpol, a number of other 50 members here in the audience are highly engaged as we've started the process of educating businesses through the chamber, through 50 for the Future, and others about how they can participate. And you can actually go and tour the crime center itself. But what you'll see when you get there are a bunch of people and cameras looking at different places across the community, all on screens on the walls, and then all of these people with computers that are taking that data and utilizing it as best possible to not only solve crime, but as the chief said, prevent crime. And we think that's the biggest part. And I'll go ahead and say this before we move to the business piece. Both Nate Coulter and Kenny Gibbs, I didn't see Kenny, separately asked me this question. So Chief, I want to go ahead and get this out in front of the public. So if they put their home cameras as part of the real-time crime center and they're running naked in their front yard, will there be people watching Nate and Kenny do that in the real-time crime center? Can you go ahead and debunk that myth?
Yeah, that would be no. So when members of the community register their cameras, it's simply just that. You are registering a camera, you are letting us know that you have a camera on your residence. So where that comes into play and helpful for us, so say we have, last October, early November, we had a rash of car break-ins up in the Heights and out in West Little Rock. So what Sergeant Bewley and her team will come in, as she said, they will analyze reports from the night before, and what we can do is pull up our platform and look who all's registered cameras in that particular area. They can draw a geographical shape around that area and send an email at one time to everybody involved and say, hey, we had a number of car break-ins, we're looking for anything suspicious, please check your cameras between these hours, and if you do, send us an email. The old days when we were detectives, we would used to have to go out and do neighborhoods. You knock on the doors during the day, you put your business card in the door, hoping the wind didn't blow it away, and 3 months when you're out there cleaning out your flower bed, you're like, why do I have this detective's card in my flower bed? So this really streamlined the process. So when you get that email immediately, you'll check your stuff, you'll drop it to us. We can start the process to investigate those type of incidents. We've solved a number of crimes this way with getting the community involved, because all too often I go to neighborhood meetings like, what can we do to help? Register your cameras. We're not looking at them, we can't see them. All you're letting us know is I have a camera. And then we can start engaging. Allows you to engage with us at any time you feel like you need to send us something. We get quite a few residents that just will send hey, this was caught on my camera. Here you go. And could be nothing, could be something. But it's just a great platform for us to be able to reach out and engage the masses instead of having to go out one at a time and knock on doors.
Makes it way more efficient. We had a situation happen not just to the east of our office, and literally we had detectives in our building looking at our video footage within minutes. And again, I go back to the Atlanta story. This stuff, it saves lives, number one. But number two, it also is a huge deterrent. And again, I want to reiterate, unless you want them monitoring your camera on an ongoing basis, which they can anyway, that would be impossible for anyone to do. It's just them knowing that camera is there and having the opportunity to reach out to you at a business or at your home to say something happened between this moment and this moment. Would you look, as the chief just said, and see if there's something that we need to see that possibly we could take a look at and help solve whatever this issue is. And so it literally is just that easy. But you talk about 38,000+ cameras in the city of Atlanta, and it's having a real impact on their crime. Chief, Sergeant Bewley, Mayor, tell us what you think this is already happening in doing so here in Little Rock.
Sure. Just a couple of specific examples of incidents that we have been able to handle, I think, more efficiently because of these partnerships. We did have a residential partner here in the community, a multifamily housing, where they had provided us that integration. So we talked about registering. Registering means you just tell us the camera's there. Integrating means that we're actually partners. We have a device on your campus or your facility that allows my detectives to tap into those cameras and see them in real time. And so we did have an incident where an individual was going through a mental health crisis, and unfortunately when our officers arrived on scene, it did result in what turned out he started opening fire on the officers and the innocent third parties there in the parking lot. And when that happened, the individual did, move away, and the officers could not see him anymore just because of where he was and where they were all trying to be safe and take cover. But we could still actually see that person on the cameras. And so we were able to give them that information about him, let him know, like, he is down, he's not down, is the gun near him, is it not? And so we were able to help them to be able to, eventually get this guy and get him medical help and that he needed. And so I don't think we would have been able to do that without, those cameras. And then kind of on a smaller level, we have businesses all the time where they are victims of crime overnight, or they're victims of crime when, the manager or the owner isn't there. And it can take 2 or 3 days for them to get that footage to our detectives because, that clerk working may not know. And so us being able to get that on the front end really helps that process and facilitates us, maybe even getting information about what the suspect is wearing that day or within an hour. And, recently we did have a robbery occur in the Colonel Glenn Asher corridor where someone came in and they parked their car nearby at an actual city building where we have partnered and we have those cameras. We could see them, and our officers facilitated an arrest within an hour of the crime. And so, if that person went and did an armed robbery, what else would they do? So, working together with the officers in the field, we very likely prevented some further, perpetrating of crimes with a firearm in our city.
So I'm a businessman, and I want to have my cameras integrated into your system. What does that look like?
Well, part of it is you can, obviously Sergeant Bewley or Sergeant Hutchinson are a good point of contact, or you can go online to connectlittlerock.org is a good place you can go. Gives you all the information you need, but basically what it is, they're called cores. These cores plug into your DVRs and allow us, it branches out, mirrors it to where we can see it real time in the center. And they can vary depending on the number of cameras, and those local businesses or facilities that want to be involved, definitely reach out to us or go online at that website and get hooked in. Like I said, want to come take a tour. We get a lot of businesses that come down first and want to take a look at it. There's no secret. We've had Episcopal has just come online. Pulaski Academy's come online. We've got the Anthony School that's online with us. So we're really trying to engage our schools. Little Rock School District, we're hoping to get them soon. They have a massive camera system, and they're trading out their cameras and redoing their systems, but we hope to get them. We're trying to engage our local hospitals. We think the hospitals is somewhere that we really need to make sure those facilities are protected, safe, because I think for all of us to understand and really get a grasp of it, it's no secret we all know that we live in a very different world today. It's not the same world that we knew 5, 10, 15 years ago. We live in a very, very different world. And so in order to keep everybody safe, these are measures that we have to keep in place. And when you talk about just hazardous incidents, it could be anywhere from a crime type deal, but we think of, Construction, we think, we're prone to earthquakes here, potentially in Arkansas. Things could happen. We got tornadoes. When the tornado came through last March, they had the cameras pulled up. They were able to see a lot of what was taken on out in West Little Rock. So these not only provide for crime, but they all provide for medical emergency services and other services as well. We have RDOT's cameras. We constantly network with our other partners. And because we've been successful, our partners across the river on the north side are in the process of developing their crime center, which will only multiply more because now we will be able to share more information with each other. So this is really a good thing for us, and we're glad to be the leaders in the state right now in this avenue, and we're just looking to grow our platform.
And this is something anybody can be a part of.
Yes, sir, anybody.
And I want to reiterate that. Oftentimes in life, we sometimes like to sit on the sidelines and scream at the coach or the players or the whatever. But this is literally something that everybody in this room within the city of Little Rock can be a part of. Everybody.
Yes, sir.
They can be players, not spectators.
Yeah, Atlanta's a good success story. I'll tell you another, Detroit. They had a very similar setup when they started their real-time crime center. It's called Project Greenlight. And you've seen what the city of Detroit's done. Brought revitalization back downtown. That whole city has changed, and they're doing great things. And it's things like this, crime centers, that they're popping up all around the country. This is the wave of the future. It's how do we embrace technology, because it's not going away. How do we turn these tools into benefiting not only us as law enforcement, but it's generating and helping public safety as a whole. And it gives the opportunity for everybody to become part of the solution on how we can all work together to solve problems. Because I always tell folks all the time, look, if you expect the police department to get up here and solve all the problems, you're sadly going to be disappointed, because we cannot do it alone. It takes, we talked about it takes a village. It does. It takes everybody being part of it in our community. It takes everybody coming together to increase platforms, to make the contributions, to do what we need to do to make things safe. And when we do that, you're going to see growth starting to happen. I firmly believe Little Rock is going to continue to grow. I think you're going to see the West Coast, the East Coast, people are going to start coming inward because it's getting crazy expensive on those parts of the country.
So I know Amy is going to be marching around with a microphone in case anybody has any questions. And as she is looking for someone raising their hand to ask a question, there's one back here. Mayor, give us just your thoughts on how innovation like the Real-Time Crime Center will help make Little Rock one of the safest cities in the country.
As I shared earlier, it's about being smarter on crime. As we continue to compete across the state and this nation to solve retention and recruiting issues. And by the way, due to the leadership of Chief Helton, by the end of this year, we would have taken down our vacancy rate from 120 to close to 60. And that's because the city board approving raises over the last 2 years, $10,000 signing bonuses, and his great leadership. So let's give him a round of applause. But secondly, it takes investment into resources to help us to play the game for the long haul. You cannot have a prosperous city if you don't have a safe and secure city. And that's what he's been doing, is making our city more safe and more secure so we can continue to delight in the growth that we've seen over the last several years and make certain that it's cemented for the future.
First, I want to thank you for what you are doing. I've actually seen the center. It's impressive. Do we have any numbers, kind of the ROI, how many incidents that the crime center has participated in, and maybe some success rates of what's been avoided or has been solved because of those activities?
Of course, a lot of our activities vary, but last year was about 7,900 incidents that they were able to maintain in 2023. Prior to that, because we implemented and got our first legs off the ground, so to speak, got them up underneath us really in October of 22. I guess is when we started, when the state fair opened up. That was our first night. We went live, and I think all of 22, we quartered about 535 incidents in our infancy. But like I said, we were at roughly about 7,900 things last year that we contributed to. So again, that's just barely scratching the surface. I look for that to continue to grow, because not only are they working with just here, but the team does a great job working with partners from around the state and outside the state of Arkansas as well. So they're tied into the National Real-Time Crime Center Association. They've networked with other crime centers across the country. So it's elevating the Little Rock Police Department and really the city of Little Rock to the next level to be a player amongst the information sharing. So we saw a good return on our investment. Give you a good example. We recovered roughly about 175 cars last year. It wasn't until August that we started really wanting to try to dive off, and I credit Sergeant Bewley this because she took it upon herself to really just figure out the dollar amount value average of what it was cost. And just from August of last year to the end of the year, we recovered almost $619,000 worth of motor vehicles. And just that when she started tracking it. So that's a huge deal that normally a lot of those cars, you know, they're right around from we're getting cars on a daily basis that are hitting these LPRs that we're making stops that don't turn into pursuits. They're able to pull up into convenience stores. We see them get out on the camera. They say, hey, this guy's wearing a red jacket, black pants. He walked inside. We literally stand outside the door, wait for him to come out and take him into custody without no problems, no incidents. So now you're reducing your use of forces, you're having less pursuits, your things are going a little bit safer. Now, it doesn't say it's not going to stop them all, but it does limit things, makes things safer, allows us to become more efficient and more effective in how we're utilizing our resources. And when we're doing that, you as the taxpayers appreciate things a little bit better when we're more efficient and we're able to handle other issues and things of that nature. And I'll talk about the dosing real quick because the mayor mentioned it earlier. So when we talk about dosing and how we utilize data to put our resources where we need to be, so we look at all they think. I've got 6 crime analysts in the department. All they do is look at numbers and maps and stuff all day long. But they tell us where we need to be at what time of the day we need to be. So we use that data to put us where we need to go as we're answering calls. And then it networks with the crime center, and they're monitoring and they're paying attention. And we move cameras around. So that's how it starts working, and that's where you get your return.
You mentioned that you had gone to New Orleans to see the real-time crime center there, and I moved up from New Orleans a couple years ago. And one of the reasons that I moved was because of the crime situation down there. When I got here, you know, people would ask, well, why are you moving to Little Rock? Because the crime stats, you know, kind of indicate that Little Rock may be a, you know, crime-ridden place too. But, you know, there are statistics, and then there's the feeling of safety. And whatever you're doing, it feels so much safer here than it did down there. And so I commend you on that. One of the software programs that they were using down there for a while was Palantir. And I recall that there was some controversy, some civil liberties groups got involved because Palantir was monitoring a lot of online activity, social media activity and stuff that was bordering on, you know, maybe privacy concerns, right? And so I'm curious what kind of guardrails you think are required with the real-time crime center to make sure that you don't cross that line and, you know, violate privacy concerns.
So I'm somewhat familiar with what you're talking about. I definitely have read up on that and some of the other you know, places in America that used those kinds of softwares. But as far as us, you know, when we first started, it was very important to review the policies and the procedures of other departments and other crime centers. And you actually will find that we're relatively a new thing, and so there wasn't a whole lot. But just being aware of that and being aware of making sure that, you know, we're keeping in mind everyone's civil liberties. I mean, just for example, you know, our cameras, they don't record sound. That would be a violation of your rights. And so making sure we're very familiar with those sorts of things when it comes to putting policies into place and having them in place before we got started. That was the first project that he had me was developing these and having them reviewed by the command staff. So I think, you know, having that in mind from the get-go was at least important on our end.
Yeah, and I think some of that software you're talking about, they had facial recognition type stuff. We don't use facial recognition software in any of our deals. It's all basically, when you use private cameras, most of y'all just regular cameras, that's what we thrive off of. Our license plate readers are out there open. So everything we use is open. Anything we look at social media is open source. That's readily available to anybody. You could get it easy. And what we've done with us, we've taken all of our platforms where some of these we had before and they were kind of spread out amongst the department. We've just centralized it to one platform now where it's easily attainable, easily researchable. Our platform that we use, our VMS, is Fusus is a platform that we utilize. It's kind of they're the new kid on the block, but they're rapidly growing. A lot of agencies are moving towards them. They do a phenomenal job. We did a lot of research on them, and it's a matter of fact, who Atlanta uses. And So we take the importance of maintaining civil liberties very important, and we're constantly monitoring any kind of court proceedings. FUSIS, one good thing about them, anything that comes down the pipe legal-wise, they're very quick to let us know, keep us up to date. So that's where those partnerships pay off, and we want to keep that in mind and definitely at the highest priority.
My turn. Come on. Thank you for being here. You're doing a great job. However, there's always room for improvement, and maybe it's just because I'm getting old, but I'm seeing more expired, temporary license plates on the road. And usually they're flapping, and usually they're being on vehicles being driven by somebody who's disobeying the traffic laws and weaving in and out of traffic. Your license plate reader, Judge, are you expired? Your license plate reader piqued my interest, but are your officers not instructed to stop those people? Because I guarantee you they don't have insurance, and they probably don't have a driver's license. And if I were a betting man, they probably have some outstanding warrants as well. So.
Traffic is probably the biggest complaint that I get in every probably community forum that I sit in. It's a very challenging issue when you talk about traffic, where there's speeding, expired tags, all of that. And while you're dealing with those things, which to me they're not menial tasks, but as we're trying to focus on those, guess what? That 911 phone never stops ringing. Especially when you talk about the day and age that we live in, where everybody has a cell phone. Everybody's calling in. The most minute things that we get, we're constantly getting called. So, our officers are told, look, when you're not out there handling calls, or you're not out there doing line patrols or focusing on dosing areas, we encourage them to get after traffic. But, like running the red lights is one of my pet peeves. I literally sit at Chenal and Bowman every morning, and I can probably count 50 cars by the time I make it to they run the red light. So it is a challenge. One of the things that we used to always rely heavily on is our motorcycle unit. And as we've had a lot of retirements and staffing challenges, we just haven't been able to beef that unit back up. But as the mayor mentioned, our recruiting is going very well. My goal, hopefully, and I'm gonna probably put myself out on a limb here, but by the end of this year, 2024, I'm hoping to be down 30 vacancies. Our recruiting efforts are going really good. If I can get to that point, that allows me to beef back up my motor unit, which they focus a lot on the traffic stuff and they go see the judge quite often when they're over there. But a lot of it is we are tasked a lot with a lot of calls, and they're out there doing it, but it's very aggravating. Trust me, I see exactly what you see. It's very frustrating because the ones who are out there doing right, that pay insurance every day, we're the ones that sometimes have to pay for that whenever the ones that are doing wrong. So yeah, but I'll definitely make sure we press that with our commanders. Yes.
So two more questions. Okay.
In terms of, you talked about, I'm right here, sorry, Chief. In terms of, keep talking about vacancies, but in way also another way to engage private citizens, is your staff and personnel staffed only by certified police officers, or are there positions that, like IT or data analysts, who may be private citizens who go through extensive background checks to kind of diversify your staffing models and personnel?
For the entire department, or for the crime center?
For the crime center in particular.
So for the crime center, we have sworn and civilian personnel. We actually, last year was the first time we'd ever done this, and I remember when I went to Sergeant Bewley and asked about it. But I had a young man that contacted me and said, hey, I'm a college student at LSU. I tried to get an internship with the FBI. I was unable to. Do you have anything that I could do? And I said, well, we have a crime center. Would you be interested in that? And he said, well, maybe. Showed up, probably one of her better employees that worked the entire summer. And he's reached back out to me here just last month and said, hey, I'll be home. So can I come up there and do my internship again? So here's a guy we've gotten on the hook to try to continue to help him because he's majoring in criminology. But we always look to anything that we could do to utilize non-sworn personnel would be great. We've currently got an advertisement out there for some part-time people that want to get into helping us. Our goal right now, we're not a 24-hour operation in the crime center. That's our goal is to get to that point, but obviously you got to have staffing when we do it. So that's the big thing. And it's kind of a little kept secret until you really see how that deal operates in there. It's very impressive when you get in and look at it. And we're not the granddaddy like NYPD. They have a room that's probably twice this size. It's amazing when you get. I always say it looks like the Enterprise, and then I've seen some that are about like a coat closet. Small, so it's really what works for us right now. I envision us probably outgrowing at some point, but yeah, we have an IT person that works down there with the team. Would probably love to expand that out, but as we continue to grow, yes, definitely we'll continue to add stuff on. But we're definitely either sworn or civilian. We would take on board to help us out. And I don't know if anything you want to comment on that.
Yes, ideally I'll have an analyst soon, and then I will have my, some more full-time civilians. Right now I have a part-time civilian. That full-time civilian job, I see you, board and mayor. It's coming to you soon. I need them.
One last question, I think, Amy, did you say?
I just wondered if you're a business that is registered, and or integrated, is there something that the business can put up so that people who are coming to their business know that, and maybe that will be more of a deterrent for them, for anybody who's wanting to target them for a crime, if they know the connection between that business and the police department?
Yes, ma'am. So right now there is a small decal that comes with the box that has the Fusus logo on it. I am wanting to develop more of like a sticker, some signage that we can put out. We like to say that, for you guys that want to partner with us, it's never my prerogative to put out who our partners are. But if you want to scream it from the rooftops, then we will gladly stand behind you and cheer. But if you want to keep it private, that's up to you. I don't know why you would. I would want everyone to know and it to be a deterrent. But that's one of my goals this year is to get some consistent signage and something that, identifies our partners that want to put that out there to the public.
And we're going to be putting together a public campaign to try to draw more folks like yourself to this program so that it's widely known throughout the community. I want to end, Chief Bewley, or excuse me, maybe soon to be Chief Bewley down the road, I'm sorry. Sergeant Bewley talked about the recovery of the stolen vehicles. And for those of you that have recently quoted automobile insurance in a major metropolitan area outside the state of Arkansas, or have children that you're currently still paying for in a major metropolitan, you would be amazed at how much more expensive that is in places like Madison, Wisconsin, and others as it is here. And so what she just talked about also impacts all of us in the pocketbook. It's not just the public safety that obviously we're all a part of helping make much better, but it's also our quality of life, our standard of living. So please give a warm round of applause to Sergeant Bewley, to Chief Helton, and Mayor Scott.